introduction, and welcome everybody. This is PnP Weekly episode 202.
Time flies, right?
Time flies. I'm so used to the 100s. It is 20th of March, 2023, and spring is coming at some point. We'll see.
Yes. Looking out of the window, seeing gray and wet and raining.
It is pretty gray day. That's true. That is true. I guess, yeah, it depends on the day for sure. My name is Vesa Juvonen. I'm a principal product manager on the Microsoft 365 platform area. And with me as a co-host is...
Hey everybody, my name is Waldek Mastykarz and I'm cloud developer advocate for Microsoft 365 and Microsoft.
Excellent. So in PnP Weekly, I always talk about the latest on Microsoft 365, and we typically have a visitor. Well, we did actually miss a visitor pretty recently because of a last-minute cancellation, but today that hopefully will not happen. And the visitor today is
Mr. Corey Roth.
Excellent. Corey is based in US. Not that I'm thinking, I have no idea on. US is a pretty big continent.
In Texas. He is in Texas, or he used to be at least.
Okay, yeah, we'll certainly go on top of that. So, and Corey works as a developer, building experiences and partner ISV experiences for Microsoft 365, and he's been an MVP for quite a few years as well. So it's a good discussion. Hopefully, we haven't recorded that yet. Coming up on his experiences and what he's doing and all of that. So, looking forward on that. Other than that. From an intro perspective, anything comes to your mind, Waldek?
Well, yes. Without further ado, let's jump into the interview.
Sounds good.
It rhymes.
Corey Roth, welcome to the PnP Weekly episode 202. And I have to say, absolutely great choice on the microphone. It's good to have a proper gear, right?
Well, when I was looking to choose a microphone, I said, what did Vesa have, right? So. Saw it in all these the first 201 PnP episodes.
Yeah, exactly. That's fair. Anyway, but Corey, let's start with basics. Who are you and what do you do for a living?
I am Corey Roth. I am the VP of Product Strategy at AvePoint, where I am responsible for making some of our wonderful tyGraph products to do analytics for Microsoft 365.
That's cool. Now, what is tyGraph? What is tyGraph products? What does that mean in practice?
So tyGraph is a suite of analytics products specifically for the various workloads in Microsoft 365. We started early on with just Yammer. We were one of the first people to come to market with an analytics solution for Yammer using old legacy Yammer APIs. A lot of story and history there. Then we brought on additional workloads like SharePoint and Teams and Pages, and some of our newer features like calling coming up soon.
Cool. And that's basically, so of course Microsoft provides some basic analytics, but you provide much more than the basic analytics. Is that the case?
That's right. People see what the analytics Microsoft provides, that it gets them started, but it doesn't answer all the questions.
Yep.
Who's doing what, how are they doing it, how long were they there, what did they open? What did they look at? All that data is available if you go sift it through the audit log, and you're more than welcome to try to sift through the millions of rows you might have on your tenant to find the answers you need. But what makes our products unique is that we know how to get data out of the audit log very efficiently and model it and then transform that into something that we can use to give you actionable insights on.
Makes perfect sense.
Point there. You mentioned, right, because you integrate with a product, and I guess the way you get to the data that you analyze is through the APIs, right? So how much knowledge and expertise do you have to be able to use the APIs, or is it just like, well, you're using the APIs, and actually what your experience and expertise is adding on top of that?
I would say it's a little of both, right? We have, what we've learned about how to get the data to the APIs, but when you're dealing with tenants that are 100,000 users, 300, 500,000 users, now you have to deal with volume and scale. So you have to know what you're doing from a data modeling standpoint, how to get the data in a format that you can process in a timely manner. This stuff doesn't happen immediately, right? For large tenants, it could take 2, 3, 5 days to get all the data we need. On top of that, you're on a rolling 7-day window where that audit log data is available. So we get data from the audit log, we get data from various APIs in the graph, of course, and then we collect some data in real time. But then we have some webhooks as well, right? So there's, we're getting data just about any way we can think of to get it, in a scalable manner.
Yeah, and then you do all of the hard work and shuffling that and processing the data and then presenting that in a beautiful way for the end users. Is that the case?
That's exactly right. So it goes through a whole transformation process. It's pretty involved, depending on the type of data. Discarding the data that's not relevant to what we're trying to report on, translating that into a model that we can then query. Most of the workloads traditionally use Power BI to go and get that data, but in the next year, more and more workloads will also have reporting services available through a web portal, Teams. We already have some presence with, of course, SPFX and web parts. So there'll be a number of places where you get that. We're really trying to make reporting accessible from anywhere you are without necessarily having to go somewhere else to go get it.
Yeah.
And that is an interesting point, because the other day we've seen, or the last few weeks actually, it was impossible for everybody to avoid AI-related announcements. There was just like one after another coming every single day. There's something new. How far are we from being able to use AI in tyGraph?
Well, I don't have a roadmap for that yet. It's something we're definitely looking at for sure. We have a trove of data, right? And it's valuable. And pointing machine learning models at it and evaluating it, learning it, no, we're not integrating with any GPT models at this point, but are we highly interested in AI in the next couple of years? Absolutely. Definitely something we're interested in looking at, but no product announcements as of yet.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think everybody, all of there's a lot of interest on doing that, and then what will be the practicalities of making that AI, let's say, usable and approachable by the end users. Because when I think about it, if you think about basic analytics, the most important thing is to have a dashboard where you can go and see the outcome. Not that you need to have, well, the AI can, of course, provide additional value out of it because you can ask questions and then get results dynamically.
That's exactly right, because not just analyzing the data we have, but also analyzing how the users are interacting with the data in the reporting model, right? Or the analytics model, either one, right? So, we notice you're looking at sites or something like that. Can we now serve you other things that are related to, you're probably a site owner, or you're or maybe you're a communicator and you know the internet, we can kind of figure out what your role is without you telling us, right? Start serving at things that way. So that's, that would be a great use case that, we can, use AI in both ends, not just data processing, but on how the user interact with the product. Because, in all our products, we love collecting telemetry. So we collect telemetry on how you use our telemetry, right?
Yes. That's true.
That's really cool because you get some interesting stuff.
Yes.
Well, there'll be also an interesting thing that, like last week we saw the announcements coming from us at Microsoft about how we want to help people be more productive. And it will be something that came to my mind now. Like, how cool would it be if we also bring in data or AI or data that we can feed AI from the vendors, like things like how I work, so that the answers that I get are more aligned with the way I work and where I am, as opposed to generic across M365, because that's only the data that we have. So they'll be interesting, like, will we ever see that ability to let ISVs bring the data that they have into the models that we build?
Correct. Is it extensibility? Yeah, exactly. That's actually really interesting. So that would be really, very powerful, because then you have both. And then having an APIs for the partners and all of that to take advantage of the data. That would be really interesting.
Yeah, and adjusting data into it. We have context, right, on who they might be, right? We could feed in the data that this person is probably in sales, right? And so the things that start suggesting to you are more relevant to a salesperson. Here's how to craft a proposal for that thing we saw in your email, or you said in a meeting that you're going to create a proposal for this client. Here's the data we've collected.
Exactly. Exactly.
Seeing all this come together is pretty exciting.
That's really good. Yeah, that's a really smart thing as well, considering that, you promised to do this kind of work. Here's a data and information for you to get started with that task, rather than just having a task of doing something. So really, really cool. Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Now, Corey, you said that you are, if I remember now correctly, VP of Product Development, right?
Product strategy, but yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah. How do you get to be VP of Product Strategy in a partner ecosystem? How do you get to be on Corey?
How do you get there?
Corey's location. What have you done in the past?
My story goes way back to.
You have one of the oldest blog in our space. I think is it still on the blog you had? It was on the SharePointBlogs.net. No.
No, I have my own domains. So we're going way back now. So.
Wait.
Taking
you back into time.
So flash forward back to 2003, right?
Yeah.
We'll tell the quick story. So there was a group of us that worked together, and we're like, we should create this group, and we formed this blog. And it was the site was .NET Mafia, which sounded fun and great at the time, and served a lot of purpose. And we accumulated over the years, well over 1,000 blog posts there, right? Between us, most of them were mine, but my friends would blog from time to time, and on a variety of topics, not just Microsoft stuff, but we had some various vendors, some open source stuff, Sitecore, things like that, anything you could think of, right? It was cool. We all started doing our own things, and the political climate changed the world. Not talking about political, but the domain name did not resonate well anymore. So we got rid of that. And so then I transitioned my blog over to just CoreyRoth.com, and that's where I continue to blog today. But yeah, so it goes way back. Lots and lots of blog posts. Started talking early ASP.NET right when 2.0 was coming out. It was in beta. It was cool stuff. I have some early stories where I happened to have a run-in with Scott Guthrie and his team, because that's what he was in charge of at the time before the whole Azure empire that he has now. But yeah, chatting with his team about how to do upgrades. We were an early adopter at the company I was at. It goes way back, and then that transition into SharePoint. The gray hair came, as I think we were talking about on our last call, and then here we are today. So to answer your question about how I got the AvePoint and all that, so many MVP summits ago, became friends with John White and some the other Canadians I met up north, and when one of my positions ended, I think it was 15 or something like that, they had some ideas, a little product they wanted to make. Seemed like a good idea at the time. I was something to handle groups inside of Office 365 back when there was really nothing connecting them, and they were pretty early on. So built something to navigate those and put them in hierarchies, which was mildly useful, but honestly never really went anywhere. But we liked working together, but the timing wasn't right. So I went and did some more consulting. I was an independent for a while, and I worked for a company or two, I think, and then opportunity came up again, and that's when tyGraph Pages started. So tyGraph Pages is a product that effectively injects into SharePoint with SPFX, and we collect data in real time, so we can do the same kind of analytics that we do with the rest of our traditional products, which were harvested out of the audit log.
Yeah.
The advantage there is that it gives us things that you can collect in real time with the browser, right? I can go get information on the list item. I can go look at what type of device they're using, where they came from, where they were detected at least, right? And all those things that you can collect in the browser that you can't collect in audit log, right? So let's just tell the other half of the story. So now we're looking at how we can take our audit log data and mix it with the data we collect in the browser to really give you a full picture of everything, right? And so then late last year, tyGraph page of success along with all our other products. They're doing pretty well, and the AvePoint approached us, and we decided, owners decided to sell the company to AvePoint, and here we are, right? So now I'm in the next phase of my job, looking at the next things we get to build as we integrate with AvePoint, which is really exciting. Combining our data with theirs, putting our data throughout the suite of their products, and really seeing how the two of us could be a better together story.
Yeah. Can you talk about quickly, kind of as a summary, what does AvePoint actually do? So what is the core of AvePoint as well, just out of curiosity?
So AvePoint has a suite of products. They're all tied around bringing additional value and confidence to the Microsoft 365 and Azure platforms. Kind of the big most successful products lately are the cloud backup solution for Azure, so you can back up various things, whether it's Azure, Microsoft 365, and a variety of other platforms. But then they have things that enhance the governance offering and do some end user stuff with MyHub. Then of course our analytics piece fit naturally in that as well. And of course, not to leave out the migration products as well. That's called Fly. You might have used to hear from the old days if you used AvePoint in the past. DocAv, that's still around a little bit for some on-premises customers, but like Microsoft, we switched to mostly a SaaS-based solution for everybody.
Yeah, makes sense. Now, you did touch, let's go back in the time a bit more, not all the way back in time, but you actually touched I just
taking you back, way back into time.
Now, but you mentioned that connection with friends, and you've been kind of a developer and sharing your knowledge for the community. Can you talk a bit about what does the MVP mean for you and the connection and friends? Because you are basically now connected and working with AvePoint because of that MVP and community connection, and you've been around actively in the community for decades already. Has it
been that long? I think you're right. Wow. Yeah, it all started with community and friends, right? Back then, I barely knew what I was doing, and only barely heard of what an MVP was, right? And then as I started to contribute more, which I just kind of started doing naturally, I started speaking at little local events and stuff like that. I heard about the MVP program. I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. It took me a few years to get in, and once I discovered it, because my contribution level was getting there, so I took some advice from a local Microsoft rep. I forget what they were called at the time, evangelist, right? Based in the Dallas area. His name was Chris Koenig. So he's on to ultimately, I talked to him a few times. I was like, oh yeah, okay, I think you're there. I'm going to submit you into the MVP program. And so yeah, that once I was in the program, that's really where my circle of friends expanded. In the tech community, and really proved valuable. Like I said, I met people like John White who pulled me into the company where I am today. Met my wife, Jennifer Mason, also an MVP and regional director. And of course, met all these other people that we've, either had jobs with, shared work with, done events with. It's been absolutely impactful, and I'm so glad to be in the MVP program, and super excited about this year because there's so many more events, right? That are coming back, and things are kind of getting back to normal, and so looking forward to being out there again and seeing people again. I feel like I've seen a handful of people here and there, but there's still so many people I haven't seen since 1918, right? And be good to see them again, right? Yeah.
Did you say 1918s? No,
yeah, that's all how old I am. Yeah. Yes, 2018, 2019. It's been a while, 4 years. It's crazy. It's been that long, right?
That's true. That is true. Yeah, the times have changed quite significantly, especially we used to have always in-person MVP summit by default, well advanced, communicated, all of that stuff as well. And
everyone also
everybody would come. That's true. I've never been an MVP because I've been on Microsoft, but then I've been on the Microsoft side of that again and meeting people. So it's interesting. So luckily we're heading to a direction where the in-person events are coming back. And I'm still crossing fingers that we'll get Ignites at the same level as they were in Orlando, because those were really cool. Those were so cool. So 25,000 people at the same room. Really? Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah.
We'll get back there, but it takes time, I guess.
Now, would you have like 2 to 3 tips for anybody who's looking into, hey, I want to be an MVP. I heard about this MVP.
Becoming an MVP
cool people
in 2023.
Yes.
MVP in
Corey Roth
23.
storyline, the recommendations, how to become an MVP in 2023.
5 tips.
Well, what I'd say is, make MVP. Don't make it like your goal, right? Like, I mean, yes, it's a good goal and like that, but don't overly focus on it. I've met people in the past. I want to be an MVP, and I'm like, why? And they're like, oh, well, I think it'd be, I'm like, okay, like let's focus on what you want to do, right? The actual benefits to the community, right? So, how can you help the community? You can do that, of course, a lot of different ways that the MVP program recognizes. People always think it's about speaking, right? And while speaking is important because it gets your face out there, public, people. I don't think it's necessarily the top thing, but it's certainly a component, because when you're speaking, your reach is, however many people are in that room and maybe how many people watch the recording, right? It's not necessarily as broad as, what you might think when you start thinking about it. Even if you're speaking at, Ignite and there's 1,000 people in your room, which is a good number, but most conferences and rooms out there, especially now, are not that big, right? And so the MVP program looks at reach. And so there's lots of other ways to have reach without with speaking, right? Of course, tech community is a great way, right? Because, somebody asks a question, if you can help answer it, other people can see that, and there's real live metrics on how many views and how much impact you have. So I think that's a great way to start, right? If you're capable of answering, and it doesn't even have to be technical questions. They're not all tech questions, right? So even if you're not highly technical in the program, and you're more on the end user side of things, or power user, that's fine, right?
Yep.
I also think blogs are great as well, right? Or articles or any kind of written medium. I think that's great as well, right? Because again, your content's out there. Some of my content from 10 years is still showing up in search results, and someone's still doing some stuff with PowerShell or whatever, right? It's still relevant, surprisingly, right? And I think a lot of people are turning to newer platforms like video and things like that. Something I still want to focus more on. I would love to do more like some kind of live type event myself, right? And have a discussion and have a call-in show, like a radio talk show or something like that. I've always thought that would be super fun. So I think, any way you can get your voice out, help people, enlighten people. But don't also forget about like mentorship and things like that, right? Just one-on-one mentorship, whether you're helping a new developer learn something or teaching somebody soft skills about, what not to put in an email or how to communicate. I mean, all this is important, especially if you're talking to like interns and new graduates, right? So they don't necessarily teach you that stuff in college, right? So
along with anything else, that kind of with having years and years of experience in enterprise world, right? Because like you don't get to learn that anywhere except doing the job. Like even if you you will read the founder's book and startups and all that. Oh, that's one side of it, but especially in our space, enterprise world, like that's governed by its own set of rules. And it's really hard to learn them unless you either will do the job and it will take you years, or you will find a mentor that will help you, cut through like the noise and say like, okay, like this is how it works. So I guess that is also invaluable aspect to it.
Absolutely. Mentorship is so important. So if you can find one, sometimes, I went to my child's prospective college. He decided to go into STEM, and it's a STEM college, and that's all they do, right? And so it is literally a group of introverts that struggle to talk to each other, right? It's been really interesting. So you put a bunch of them together, they're all these coming into the class next year, and like, very few of them actually talk to each other. So it was very interesting. So it's like, how do you get them to? How do you get them? I'm like, I know you're all into the same stuff, right? Whether it's anime, video games, movies, whatever. Like I know it, right? But how do you get them talking, right? And so I think a mentor, that when you get the workforce, if you're still, haven't come out of your shell yet, a mentor can help you navigate the organization, learn how to communicate better, and just ask you questions on how you handle the situation, give you tips. So.
That's actually a really, really, really good point for sure. Mentorships, that's actually really, really good. So we do, obviously, I think, Waldek, will you do a few mentorships as well? I don't know if you do, but I guess you do. I have quite a few one-to-ones throughout my week, which is always good, because again, one of the key points there is that you learn a lot from the other side as well. And the beauty of having those one-to-ones is that and especially if they're more diverse, means that you understand the world outside of your bubble, because we are so bubble driven. And then the bubble basically gives you the perspective of, hey, everybody knows these things. No, they don't. Everybody works like this. No, they don't. The world looks like that. No, in the real world, it's not like that. So
as a mentor, your bubble could very well much be your agent experience, right?
Exactly.
And you just assume everyone knows how to do this, or you're talking about things you just don't know, terms you don't know, things you don't, because they're younger than you, and so you if you keep your ears open, you listen, right, you can learn things as well.
Absolutely. 100%.
Absolutely. It is exactly that. It is that two-way street where folks come to you for your experience and expertise, but you can get as much back learning from like how people do things nowadays, right? Like when we would start in community, like, or when I was starting in 2007, video wasn't a thing. There was no TikTok.
Absolutely.
It wasn't there, and now these things are. And for many folks, these are the primary ways in which they learn, and it's a way different experience. Like for me, when I think about how can I help folks learn new stuff, well, I need to think about these new ways that isn't something that I use myself in the past, and also to which I don't default, right? Because it's just not in my experience.
I'm right there with you, right? I don't learn well with video, but I know younger people do, right? When I was, we were there when the video platforms came out, right? And I was basically, brought up by management, said, if you're watching a video, you're not doing your job, right? Like you're clearly, you're clearly doing something you're not supposed to be doing. You don't want to be caught with YouTube open, right? And eventually stuff came on there and it's like, oh, maybe this is okay, right? But still not my default mechanism, right? If I have a choice between an article and a video, I'm going to go to the article usually. So.
Yeah, I think, well, that's one of the interesting things. A bit of a sidetrack, but again, even on the Microsoft Learn, the best possible results we clearly get with an article where we have the same article as a video, because then the video is getting feeds, and then you basically have the same thing.
I like how you all do that
in video format.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, it's interesting how well those videos are performing actually as well, because it's like, okay, they find the doc, but then they're like, I don't want to read. I'll just watch the video. So, matter of preference, we are different. So, which makes perfect sense. So, absolutely. Now, for the work what you do, what does a VP in product strategy? What does that mean in the day-to-day work? Are you still writing code?
Meetings. How many meetings do you have?
I was legacy tyGraph, I had one meeting a day, maybe occasionally a day with two meetings. Obviously that's gone up, but that's okay because we have bigger teams and more people to talk to. And I'd still say I'm pretty lean, but I'm also we just established what my role kind of looks like as well, right? In the last week or two, even so. It looks like, I'm going to have a hybrid role. I still have some engineers report to me from the tyGraph organization, and they're a very diverse set of people from ETL to Azure infrastructure, kind of DevOps engineer, right? And then, I'll have product management roles as well, right? So figuring out what goes into the tyGraph products for the areas I'm responsible for, and working with a couple other product managers on my team as well to really define what is next for tyGraph, along with some other new initiatives that we're hopeful that will be viable as well. So this combined role, it's going to be a lot of fun, I think, in this next year, and looking forward to seeing what we can build. As you were saying, am I still slinging code? Not as much as I was, but I'm still responsible for a lot of code from the tyGraph era that I'm still putting releases together from time to time. Some of that will probably shift more to engineering. We'll see. We haven't quite figured out who does what yet, but we're getting there.
That's always a interesting challenge on letting it go, also on not necessarily writing that much code, because if you come from a developer background, you're so, at least personally I can relate on this really well, you're basically hooked on the almost like how many rows of code I've written as the productivity metric, and then you all of a sudden need to switch the agendas of no, you're coordinating, and then the more you efficiently coordinate and do things, the more efficiently other people can write the code. But then it's all time away from you, which is super interesting. It's an interesting, let's say, dilemma on dealing with that change and transition.
It is.
And then still feeling that no, you're still valuable because you're still providing.
Right,
but again,
the
bubble is causing you the being like, no, everybody, I'm not providing any value. I'm just
Yeah, but I mean, that is an interesting point.
You're right.
That is an interesting point, right? Because like first you code, then you kind of take a step back to let others code, but you coordinate, and then you step back even more. Basically, you get out of people's way because now you have folks who coordinate. So exactly that. Like, at the end of the day, what do you do exactly? Well, I mean, there are still things like alignment, vision alignment, strategy, like that don't require you to be deep in the weeds, but have that full picture overview, especially Corey, as you said, at AvePoint, it's a big place. You have many products across the board, and it's the one thing, like, just to be in the know, but also like thinking like how 1 + 1 could be 3. Like, where can you do more by combining things? And that requires you to know a lot more outside your direct group, your code that you would do in the past. Right?
Absolutely right. Yeah, that's absolutely right. So it's an interesting time, and there are definitely things that I just simply never had the bandwidth to get to, or the rest of the team, right? And so now we're looking at putting those things, up the backlog, actively work on them, and make it happen, right? They're just things we couldn't get done, because we are either, trying to keep the lights on the other part, or just higher value features that we thought. And there's lots of things that still have lots of value. We just never had the bandwidth for. So that's really exciting, because that means I can really, have the whole vision end to end on what the product looks like. And so it's exciting. It's going to be a totally different product in a year, right? We'll still have everything it did before, but the way you use the product and access the product and interact with it will be completely different. All these different places that you can go get reporting wherever you want, right? So
bring reporting where people are. That's good. So really cool.
That's what we're trying to do.
On your own terms. There you go.
On your own terms. That's absolutely right.
Copilot.
Reporting Copilot. Ooh. Better go trademark that.
Now, from a timing perspective, let's do a quick round. Anything interesting happening this week, Corey, on your world? What's happening? How does your week look like? Just from no NDA stuff, but in general.
This week, hard to say it's still early in the week, right, to figure out what's going on. But I think a lot of this week will be focused on defining things on our product roadmap. For example, there'll be things I'm tasked with, along with further integration tasks. So may not be super excited, but I think we're in this kind of key phase where we're defining a lot of the capabilities and fishing out their viability and feasibility. And so that's kind of where we're at. We won't have any deliverables, right? We're not going to have any new code this week or anything like that. But this is where we're kind of in the beginning of a planning cycle. So,
yep, makes perfect sense. Waldek, anything interesting on your side? I know what you say. Always
interesting. Well, I don't know how interesting it is to you, but it's very interesting to me. So, beginning of March, we did a virtual hackathon, and we received about 130 projects to review.
Wow.
So that is on my plate, to review them by the end of beginning of the next week. So we need to go through them, judge them. Yeah, but it's really cool. Like you see folks, and it's cool to see, right? Because like we got folks would hack and either come from school or be very experienced folks. We have folks who have never seen Graph before, and we have folks who have been working with Graph a lot, right? So we get kind of all the things from a tutorial that folks did, which is really cool to see them. Like they went through it, submitted their hack, basically being a tutorial that it completed, and then that is it, right? So it's really cool to see these new folks really, just take the effort and go through it, to like complicated or complex apps, with Teams bots and AI and cognitive services. And you're like, like we even have folks build a tic-tac-toe on Graph, and you're like, I've never seen this. So it's really interesting to see, like, it's very atypical use, but it only proves like how you can think of it and what different ways you can bend it to work. So we get review all of that, and in 10 days or so, or even less, we will announce the winners. So that is how much.
That's awesome.
Cool. Really, really cool. On my side, on 21st of March, we're going to release the second beta of SPFX 1.17. So that's coming up on the day when this is released. So a lot of stuff on the Teams and Viva. I need to do some wording on it. So there's an interesting, this comes back and again at the discussion on the PM side of the PM work, which says,
can you write me an announcement of a new version of SPFX?
But it's interesting when you go to the engineers and they're like, okay, so what are we building? They're building a lot of stuff, they're building features, and then you get the list of release notes from them. It's like, okay, let's reformat them in an understandable way for ecosystem, because if we just take whatever the engineer is saying, it's like, I don't understand what that means. But okay, so let's elaborate a bit. So a lot of the work is on making sure that there's
GPT to elaborate.
Yes, elaborate.
Potentially.
And then put on top of English.
Yes, the Finglish. The Finglish touches on top.
Exactly.
Does GPT know Finglish?
Oh, it does? Maybe it does.
Well, it does. If you would feed it your past announcements, maybe you would pick, the one or two things. True. But it's a lot of the work is actually on there, and it's because again the communications is crucial for the ecosystem to understand the value of what engineers are providing, and that's obviously something what Corey will work on as part of his role as well, and communication. It's surprisingly important, because again we're living always in these bubbles, and then trying to figure out how do we explain the things in a way that it makes sense for the audience is interesting for sure. But a lot of time being spent there for sure, and a lot of other stuff on the calendar. I'm just watching the calendar and freaking out, but it's fine. And this week is still one of those weeks where the time zones are completely messed up, because Europe moves. Right? Yeah, one more week. Next Sunday, Europe moves to daylight savings as well. So then it's back to normal. So, but still. Anyway, I guess that's it for now. Thank you, Corey. Awesome to have a chat with you, and good guidance and instructions and perspectives from your side related on product management. Always good to have that discussion as well. And
thanks for having me.
Back in a bit to talk more about where you've come or how far you've come based on the change, about your role, the scope, and what tyGraph is then. Maybe if it has another name.
Absolutely, yeah. Look forward to talking to you in the future. Just show off what we've done, or talk about it at least, and excited about the future, and congrats on hitting more than 200 episodes, I guess. So that's cool too. Like,
yep. Thank you.
Keep
them coming.
Absolutely.
We'll absolutely
We'll get you rescheduled within the future for sure. But thank you, Corey, on this one. Next, we'll jump on the weekly articles related from Microsoft and from the community, which we actually recorded already afterwards. But so the magic of video editing happens.
Don't tell anybody.
Yes. But thank you, Corey, for this one. Really cool.
Thank you, Corey.
Thanks.
Have a good one.
You too.
An excellent welcome. Thank you, Corey. We are really good at this. We are really good at
This is going so well.
Yes. Thank you, Corey, for the interview. And then right in the normal flow, we'll jump on the weekly articles. So we'll go through the articles from Microsoft and from the community around the different areas of Microsoft 365 and then some of the Power Platform news as well. Because hey, it's all related on the Microsoft Cloud, isn't it?
It is. So
it certainly is.
What do you have for us this week?
So we'll start with a recipe for, not just kidding. Sorry, Monday. So we'll start obviously with the great, interesting announcement last week, which was, well, I don't think it was a massive surprise, but it's actually cool to see all of the scenarios and demos and everything else around the Microsoft 365 Copilot. So I think we as a Microsoft, we've been rolling out a lot of AI features, actually long time already. So this isn't really about, I saw a discussion which was, well, you just recently had a stake with ChatGPT and OpenAI, and so you integrated all of this stuff super fast. Well, not precisely. We've been obviously having work on the AI side for years, and of course with the ChatGPT 4, and we've been partnering with them for a long time. And yes, there was an investment pretty recently to them from Microsoft, but that really isn't the moment when we start building stuff. So designing and building and validating experiences actually takes quite a long time before we roll out features. So it's not like a moment of hey, let's actually do this on Monday, and then on Friday we'll announce something. That's not how it exactly. That's not how it works at all. But that was actually a really cool announcement. Of course, this was a really awesome set of features. I love the fact that we're heading to a direction where the AI is helping us to be more productive. It's not necessarily that AI. I think there's always a fear that AI will take away our jobs. No, that's not the intention. The intention is that we can focus on more important things and more relevant things. So getting let's say the simplistic stuff away from our table and using AI for those, and then focusing on the important things is where we're certainly heading. I love also the idea that you can actually just set basically and ask from AI that, hey, I need to provide a polite response on this kind of an email, and it will give you the template, or something else. So it's like, ooh, that's interesting. But that raises also a lot of questions. It's actually really interesting. There was a good discussion at some point, I think it's some Facebook or social media related on, well, isn't it kind of interesting that we'll end up in a situation in the worst case scenario where AI have a discussion on AI because the people are too lazy to actually write their own stuff. So they just use the AI to respond.
Oh yeah, I mean, it would be like you give a one sentence prompt to AI, which will expand it to few paragraphs that will send it over to a person who will see like a paragraph of text, and they will trim it down, summarize it to a sentence, and then reply back with so why are we sending over the wire all the data that no one reads?
Exactly. Well, we'll see how it goes, actually, but a lot of interesting, let's say, increased productivity and being more productive within the work with the scenarios and getting input and guidance and instructions directly from AI, so and in an understandable way. That's actually really awesome. I think some of this is actually the kind of, how would I say, the promise of the bot framework and chatting at some point, which is basically you use your natural language and then the computer helps you to get stuff done. And AI is really enabling that to happen, which is really, really cool.
It's also an interesting thing. Like the one thing that I like a lot is, for example, where you can go to Copilot like in PowerPoint and say like, hey, I have here a doc. Can you turn that into 10-slide PowerPoint? Perfect.
Yes, exactly.
But then there was also another thing that made me think. I think it was something around make proposal based on meeting notes from X.
Yeah.
How well that requires you to be highly organized and associate the right notes. Like it requires us to work in a way that is recognized as patterns that are picked up on by AI. Because if I keep track of my notes elsewhere, well, then I will not be able to do that. So in other words, in order to benefit from everything that we can get from that, we also need to understand the way it works and then align our work with that. Or over time, we can also think that it will evolve and it will be able to track more different types of work as opposed to, no, you got to keep your notes in OneNote. Otherwise, I will not be able to keep track of them.
Yep, absolutely. There's a lot of interesting scenarios, and I think the whole announcement last week was more about, let's say, we're announcing this is now coming, and the let's say the cool scenarios and business processes around that, and then we'll start seeing more and more features rolling out after that. Now, on the Power Platform side, there was actually new features getting released last week as well, related on AI, so which is really, really cool. So you actually see stuff like the PVAs. Come on. The Power Virtual Agents powered by OpenAI and all of that. So it's really, really cool. By the way, Tuesday this week, if you're watching this on Tuesday when we release this podcast or the video, we will actually cover the latest features in the Power Virtual Agents with OpenAI in the community call. So that's actually really cool as well. So awesome stuff.
Another thing on that note that was really cool was the ability to use natural language to build a Power Automate flow. Basically express, I want to automate this, or I want to get a message whenever, and it would just build a whole thing. Like, perfect. Like that is a huge way for me to save my time and get my work done the way I want it to be done. But then not have to, fiddle with connectors and actions and activities and tie everything into that. None of that. Like, let me express the thing that I want, go through it and check if that does the right thing, and I'm done. Perfect.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, give you the starting point rather than you starting from scratch, and give you something to work on. I still remember Omar Shaheen at some point saying, Omar nowadays leads the Word and the editor sides. He's CVP there. He used to be CVP in my organization, saying that in the future in Word, in Microsoft Word, nobody starts from a clean document, which is actually a really cool way of thinking that. So as you're writing an email, as you're writing a response, you can say, generate me a starting point with this, like this is the default setup, and you will write that in plain English or your native language, and then it will give you the starting point, and then you are able to start editing, and that's actually saving time, of course. Now, anyway, that was really, really cool. What else did we have last week? We also had this was actually interesting as well, because this was shared in Microsoft 365 blog, in the Tech Community Microsoft 365 blog, administration of Microsoft 365 into the new era on AI. Because the reason why this is interesting, it actually addresses the questions related on data security and privacy. Because immediately when we have AI reading things and taking into account of things, okay, so what's the privacy and security implications and all of that? And that is being basically addressed here with a Copilot FAQs and all of that. So really, really cool that we're basically answering to that logical, immediate question by default. You're clearly multitasking. Well, what's happening there?
So based on that, I wanted to look up and quickly find, and I managed to do that, a video that I will share with you right now. So we are so prepped ahead of time, because we didn't catch that originally, but there's something that pops in my mind, which is a great video. It's a 2-minute video, about that explains how Copilot works and how it takes into account things like ACLs, what you have access to, and how does that work. So this is a great video that basically makes a very high level overview of what data you have access to, how does your prompt basically ends up being enriched with the data about your work from the Microsoft Graph, and then ends up being an answer. So really, really
absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the really cool. I think Jared did a good job of explaining this chart within the live event as well, but it's great that we have a separate video explaining that. And it's actually interesting to notice that Microsoft Graph is here because, of course, Microsoft Graph, again, is the API to accessing information and insights in the Microsoft 365 in authenticated way. So, of course, Microsoft 365 Copilot takes advantage of that then to understand the permissions and context and all of that. So really, really cool. Thank you, Waldek, on catching up on that. And it's only 1 minute 49 seconds, so everybody has time to actually watch that, right? Now, we also released quite a few other blog posts from Microsoft last week. So tips for using Teams chat to stay organized, engaged, and have fun. So good kind of end-user driven or team-driven guidance on how we can use the Microsoft Teams chat and discussions on what are the different options and all of that stuff, which is great. We also had a what's new on SharePoint Server Subscription Edition, which is, on-prem, but it is actually on-prem for a lot of the customers in the world. They are actually still using on-prem. It might be security, it might be compliance reasons why they have a hybrid setup or completely isolated on-premises setup. And there are investments being done there as well. So just calling that one out as
also
well.
In there, an interesting point, something that we've been asked about a lot. There is new version of SPFX available there. So on the page, if you look now on the end, there's announcement about SPFX version 151 being available.
Yes.
And that goes up from 1.4, I guess, was in the past.
1.4.x, yeah.
Exactly.
So
yeah,
the 1.5 and the thing to call out here is that this is basically first step of getting stuff evolved more. At the same time, it's important to understand that, of course, Azure AD, authentication, all of that, Microsoft 365 Graph, not there, API is not there. So it's just a technical bump on those features which are available in on-prem. Good. We also had an announcement on the Viva Connection Toolkit for Visual Studio Code, which is now in preview. It's been actually silently in preview for a while, but we finally released a set of a video playlist, a set of 8 videos with me, David Warner, and Hugo Bernier, and showcasing what does the Viva Connection Toolkit actually provides for Viva development, and actually even more than that, because it works in any SharePoint framework solution, providing you an abstraction on top of the CLI for Microsoft 365 and out-of-the-box SPFX human generator. So it is actually a really, really cool toolkit helping development of any SharePoint framework solution within VS Code. A lot of interesting productivity enhancements for developers within the VS Code. So that's really, really cool. Now, there was an announcement from Microsoft Graph team. I'll let you to talk about this one.
Recent changes to data visibility for Microsoft Graph call records APIs.
API.
Right. So basically, if you use the APIs to automate or interact with recordings, you will have now there is a change regarding how the data is accessible. So with that, if you are in the space that you use it, check it out because it might affect your work.
Absolutely. Bit of a bummer to say that this change went effective on February 2023, and this is released in March 15, but it's better to still communicate rather than being silent. So a bit of a timing challenge on the communications. Now, Bob German had a great blog post related on the App Camp, Microsoft Teams App Camp, which is a storyline for ISVs or ISV application creation for Microsoft Teams, and there's now a App Camp in a box. So basic idea here is that you have a reusable set of assets which you can use easily to do and deliver workshops related on Teams development. It's just really, really cool. Awesome stuff. Awesome job by Bob on that. Then we had tailored SDK experiences via Kyoto, now generally available. What is Kyoto?
So it's a tool that allows you to build your own client or an SDK for an API, right? So imagine you've built an API for your org, or maybe there is an API from a vendor that you want to use, but you don't want to do a REST call to it because you want to have a design time, type safety, or you want to benefit from some of the things like error handling or other things. Well, you don't need to build an SDK by yourself. You can use this tool to have basically an SDK created for you. And the cool thing is that it allows you to either build an SDK for the whole surface of the API or only a part that you actually use in your app. So basically, you're in control, but in a way, it's your co-pilot for building SDKs. There you go. I said it.
That's true. And why would we only target those APIs which we use is really the size of the library, because when you think about Microsoft Graph, it's massive. So you don't want to auto-generate an SDK for everything, because that would be
for what, like for things like CLI PowerShell, where you use every endpoint, you might want to have an SDK that does all of that. But
absolutely,
in typical app, you are very unlikely to use every single endpoint exposed on Graph or any other API, right? So this is a great way for you to be able to don't waste time on building the SDK, but instead get the SDK, benefit on that, build on that, and solve problems for the customers.
Absolutely, 100%. Now, we also had an announcement of tenant switcher in Power Apps Mobile, and this is something which obviously being asked more and more. Quite a lot of us are working in multiple tenants because we join from our own organization and visit other organizations and all of that, and that's the cross-tenant transition. And in the Power Platform, Power Apps Mobile, that feature is now available, so you can easily switch between the different tenants for your account, which is really, really cool. Awesome work there. We also had an announcement on the new community team members for the Microsoft 365 Power Platform community. Really, really cool. We're extending our virtual cross-organizational team, building open source community, coordinating community assets, and all of that. And it's basically a team which I think the first part of that team was created back in 2014, and then it's been expanding and growing because there's so many projects and things which are happening across the board from an open source perspective and also from community engagement perspective. And this time we have Adam, Daniel Laskovich, JC. What's JC's last name again?
Agberg.
Yeah, you can pronounce it that much better than I can. But Adam Wojcik, see, I can.
Almost good. Yeah, a 7. There you go.
Marcus Müller, I can do that.
Yeah,
so that's good.
That's 9, almost 10. Yeah.
Yeah, Martin Linkstui, Martin Linkstui. Linkstau.
Yes.
Close. And then Milan Holzman as the 6th one. So 6 new people, and these are basically the cross-organizational virtual team coordinating our open source assets and open source work together, which is really, really cool. Actually, that coordination, the overall team is now more than 50 people, consisting from people in Microsoft and also community members. And for, I think, everybody in this team, it's really about building that best community within the world, which is welcoming everybody and trying to make sure that we scale, as there's so many messages, so many requests, so many things, what we're doing together with the community, helping everybody to succeed. So thank you for all 6 joining on the team as well. Then we had a blog post from Valeris Narbudas.
Exactly, about CI/CD pipes for SPFX deployment in Azure DevOps using Microsoft 365 CLI, or CLI for Microsoft 365, as it's called.
Yeah.
Basically, the whole title is a keyword bomb. It's CLI, Azure DevOps, CI, SPFX deployment. It covers like,
that's actually, that's
very
good.
Expressive. It contains, it directly tells you what the article is about, right? So in other words, if you use a CI/CD pipe and you want to deploy your SPFX app to whatever environment you have, how would you do that on Azure DevOps using CLI from Microsoft 365?
Yep, really, really cool. And
PowerShell, it uses PowerShell as a shell or as the runner. Yes, correct.
Yeah. Cool. That's actually, these are really good because these are typical things what so many customers and so many partners do need. So awesome to say. Thank you, Valeris, for sharing your expertise on that. Now, you also had a interesting new blog post.
Exactly. Right. So the one thing that we see is that the way we build apps these days is that they're connected to APIs. And it's really cool because it's a really easy way for us to tap into the ability to do anything that we want, from basic CRUD operations to chat, GPT, OpenAI, and whatever else. And the challenging part there is that, yes, it's simple to get that to work, But the challenging part is, how do we ensure that the way we handle or we work with API is robust and it will not break the whole app? And the challenging part there especially is expressing that error state on the API and mimicking that so that you can test that your code can deal with that. Because how you force, like, I cannot call open AI folks and say, hey guys, could you please break your app, break your API, because I'm working on some code and I want to test if I will be able to handle the errors right? So It's really hard to mimic that. And there is a tool that makes it easier. Enter Microsoft Graph Developer Proxy.
Absolutely. So good. Great blog post again on helping on understanding the value of that tooling as well. So awesome stuff. Now there was also a new blog post from Kasper Larsen. This is boost your PnP modern search list layout. So basically, how do we utilize the PnP modern search, and then how can we modify that to be more efficient and change the layout as well? That's really cool. So thank you, Kasper, on that one. And update the blog post layout. Put your name there, definitely. Then we had a blog post from João Ferreira.
Exactly. How to use video as a background in SharePoint pages header. That's a very interesting thing. I think that might be coming. I'm not sure if it was him or somebody else who shared on Twitter the Bing video background.
Yep.
The videos from that and how, and I think that might inspire him, if it was him or somebody else, basically to show like, how could you mimic or how would you achieve a similar result in SharePoint?
Correct. And that's basically how it looked like. So it's basically, so this is, how would I put it? This is a JavaScript hack to pinpoint that the div and then updating the image and flying that, because there's no out-of-the-box way of doing that. But again, so
in other words, one day you might find yourself backgroundless on your site because something's changed.
Correct. This is taking care of the advantage of the modern script editor web part, which is a third-party custom web part not available natively within a product. Then to hook in the video as a background. But hey, that does work absolutely 100%. So at least for now.
Great feedback to the team. Hey, maybe we should allow people to set a video as a header, because we do the same thing in Bing.
100%. Exactly. So. Absolutely. So, but basically what we're doing here is that we're hooking into the specific HTML structure and then adding the injecting basically the video to be played over there. So it is it's a really cool and clever way of doing things for sure. Now, not out of the box though. Now, from the 365 Message Center show with Daniel and Daryl, there was a new post around Microsoft Loop app coming to pop up.
Yes, exactly. You're talking robot. Microsoft Loop app coming to public preview.
Correct, and there's a lot of other stuff as well. So SharePoint list with approvals and Viva Connection customer-facing analytics and all of that stuff as well. So basically, again, a weekly summary on what are the new experiences, and then they change the title based on the most exciting for them. And Daryl has been promoting the Microsoft Loop for a long time. He's definitely super excited on that, and it looks really awesome, and it is actually really good. So for sure. Now, there was also a new version of the PnP.js available since last Friday, published by Julie Turner, so 3.13.0, which was released Friday, releasing version 13. That's always good. So I'm living in the house number of 13, so, I don't consider that as exactly. And I realized that when I'm flying on a plane, I typically take the row 13 if that's available, and I typically have a free seat right next to me. So there's clearly some sort of a people avoiding.
Well, but it's also the thing, like you mentioned that you live in a house number 13 and you don't see that as a bad luck thing. But on the other hand, like, you replaced almost everything by now. So
in the house, that's true. That has been built ground up pretty much.
Nothing to see here.
Exactly.
It's okay.
And the direct translation on the house, I have to say, the house road. I'm not going to say obviously the actual address, but it would be something like maintenance road. Which is actually
Very
interesting as well.
Self-explanatory, yes.
Yeah. So, have you been maintaining a lot of the house? Yeah, we have.
All the time.
Exactly.
Moving from one project to another.
Yeah, it is what it is, but it's home. It's okay. It's fine. It's okay. Anyway, then April Dunham had a new video related on Power Apps Copilot, which is here, and she shows how to get started on using that in this great 10-minute video. Awesome stuff. As we chatted, the Power Platform Copilot features were enabled last week as part of the announcement of Copilot rolling out as well. So super cool stuff. Thank you, April, for showcasing things. And as she's saying this, I'm going to actually play this without the audio. I think there was a good effect. It is groundbreaking. There we go.
Boom. For those who didn't see it, it was like zoom, zoom, zoom.
Yes. Now, Shane Young had also a Copilot for Power Apps makers and users, a tech demo on how that does work. Again, a lot of Copilot Power Platform AI stuff released last week for sure. And Shane is always prepping his videos with the new features as well. So super awesome stuff. And then the last one was around how to create a people picker in Power Apps by Giuliano De Luca. So basically building a custom people picker, which is then searching things using search. Yes, it's using search, finding the relevant information and all of that stuff. So thank you, Giuliano, on that. But that's it for now. So this one, and I'm just realizing that we are out of time.
We are exactly on time. We are not out of time. We are on time, and our guest is waiting in the lobby. So
yes. Thank you, Corey, one more time for the interview, which we will move into doing right now because we're back to the future.
We recorded it actually by now, so.
Yes. Anyway, thank you for everybody watching. Please use hashtag PnP Weekly in Twitter. Easier for us to find what awesome stuff to do. And feedback and suggestions always welcome. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Waldek. Thanks, Corey.